Hi everybody, welcome back to another video on my channel. It's Corinne. Hope everybody's doing well today. I want to show you what we're going to be making and what I'm going to be demoing. These are using 2D and 3D embossing folders and color burst type powders or pigment powders, if you will. I have a variety of different kinds, even including bring them out, but brushos. Some brushos are actually a fine art supply that you can use that will has pure pigment in it, and you can sprinkle it on, and then it's activated by water. Just beautiful, beautiful colors. But I'm just going to use these ones here for today, and just put these guys away. But there are a variety of kinds that you can use. Brushos. I believe Perfect Pearls will work if you have the old style Perfect Pearls. We have Lindy's Magical Shakers, Color Burst by Ken Oliver, and he has a variety of different sets for them. Nouveau by Tonic has shimmer powders. And then I think Elizabeth Crafts, has something called Pixie Powders, I believe it is. And those do the same thing. So anything that you shake on, so it's called Pigment Powders, and then it's activated by water. And so all of the color that is in these pots, they burst and come to life with water. And I'm going to demo that for you. But first of all, I'm just going to show you the two cards that I made using these. The really cool thing about this particular technique, and if you all know me, you know how much I love a bargain, but you basically get 2 for 1 using this technique. You'll get 2 card panels out of each spraying or whatever of your pigment powders. Okay, so what you will need is pigment powders of your choice, of your colors that you would like. You'll need some adhesive. You need a work surface that you don't mind getting dirty. You might want to wear gloves and an apron or some grubby clothes or something like that. These are very similar to, they don't behave like alcohol inks, but they have pure pigment like an alcohol ink. So once you get it onto something and it activates, you've now essentially dyed it that color. So you want a clean work surface, maybe put down if you don't want to get your work surface dirty. Make sure you're working on a mat of some sort. Also have a cloth nearby to clean up. You're also going to want or something you can throw away, maybe like a throwaway tablecloth, whatever you need, so that and have it in an area where you don't mind. Things might splatter, things might get dirty. Okay, so you're going to need those things. You will need heavy stock cardstock. Okay, so what I'm using here for my cardstock is just plain cardstock. It is Nina Crest Classic Solar White, 110 pounds, so it's very thick. Okay, it will handle enough water of what we're going to be using here. You can use watercolor cardstock, but you don't have to. You'll want card panels. I see that I forgot to cut these down. So because I want to have a little bit of a border, I'm going to cut these down before I soak them and put them into my embossing folders so that they get that nice front to them. Okay, so you need that. You'll need a spritzer, a water spritzer. This one's the Tim Holtz Distress Sprayer, so it gives you either big beads of water or a nice fine mist. I'm also going to be using a second one here, which I've added the white color of Perfect Pearls. It's actually called Perfect Pearls. All the other ones have different names on them, but this one has a shimmer to it because not all of the powders that I have shimmer to them. For example, the Ken Oliver ones are just pure pigment. There's no shine or anything like that to them. So if you want it to have a bit of a bling or a bit of a sheen to it when you're done, you want to spritz it with like a water that has that. So another one here is Sheer Shimmer Craft Spray. This is by Imagine Crafts. And anytime that you're shaking something, so you can see the shimmer moving in there, so you want to make sure that you're shaking it up. If you've got Tim Holtz Distress Sprays, anything like that that has something in it that you have to move that shine around. You want to make sure that you're moving it side to side, not shaking it up and down. Because sometimes what will happen then is you end up pushing the glitter or those mica powders up into the spray bottle, which helps it to get clogged and things like that. So you want to move it in this direction or swing it around like this to move it around and things like that, rather than shaking it up and down kind of thing. That because that can push it up the nozzle and then possibly contribute to it getting clogged. Okay. You'll need 3D embossing folders. So I'm going to do 2 examples today. Well, technically it'll be 4, but I'll create 2 cards out of it. You'll need, these are 3D embossing folders. I did do it with a 2D embossing folder and it did work, but I did enjoy the results that I got from the 3D embossing folder better. It does work on the 2D or just a regular embossing folder, but I did enjoy the result that I got with the 3D better. Okay, so the ones that I'll be using today is Swirling Snowflakes from Simon Says Stamp, as well as Pinpoint Starlets by Simon Says Stamp. So those are what I'm going to be using today. Yeah, I think that's most of our supplies. That will, oh, and you'll need a die cutting machine to be able to run your embossing folders through. Just make sure that it's set up to whatever your sandwich for whatever your die cutting machine needs, not because I can't tell you. It all depends on what you've got, whether you've got a Gemini Junior, like an electronic one, Tim Holtz Vagabond, a Big Kick, a Sizzix machine, whatever. They all have slightly different things for putting embossing folders through, and you'll even find that it will vary depending on the embossing folder. Regular embossing folders have different thicknesses, so just the regular 2D ones, and even your 3D ones will have different thicknesses. So just try out a variety of shims and things like that to see which one works for you. So to just bring this a little closer to you, oh, and the final ingredient, we will need white pigment ink and a brayer. Okay, to put that on at the end, but that'll come at the end then. But you can see here, I get this beautiful texture and I've made my own background and just created a really fun birthday card. Okay, so that's first example. And then second example, because we're coming into the holiday season, so I like to try and do at least every time I'm doing class now, at least one Christmas card for myself to try and knock them off my list. So this one says Season's Greetings. It's 3D pine trees here. And it's just a really nice, subtle texture that turned out really quite lovely. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is trim down my cardstock. I could do it afterwards, which is actually what I had to do on the last set because I didn't think about it beforehand. But when you put it through, you end up having to, I don't want to have to be concerned about it taking off or squishing down in the areas where I'm pushing on my paper here. I don't want to have to worry about it taking any of the 3D, the embossing that I've done. Kind of ruins all of the effort that I will be needing. So while I'm doing this here, if you want to start getting your supplies together here, it'll just be another minute. The other thing that we will need is a heat tool, because we'll be obviously we'll be putting water on these items, so we'll want to dry them. You can just put them aside and just let them dry on their own. Just do up a whole bunch of them all at once and let them just put them aside and let them dry on their own, which is a great way to do it. Just let the pigment powders do their thing. But in order to move the class along and get you a finished card by the time we're done, this is what we got to do. Okay? So I'm actually going to start with my snowflake one, just because I'm the most excited about that one. So I'm going to put, so I've got my Nina Classic White, or sorry, Nina Solar White Classic Pressed cardstock here, 110 pound. Okay. And I've got my embossing folder here. And what I'm going to do is I want to do this on the embossing side. So I'm going to put the front. So because I take all of my supplies out of their packaging and I store them in different ways that works for me, this is why I've marked this is the front and also the company and all of that kind of stuff. So I want to have the front side down because I want to be taking my powders and I'm actually going to be undoing them. When you're utilizing these powders, you want to make sure that you're just tapping them. You're not going to see a ton coming out. Okay. You don't want to squeeze them, because if you squeeze them, you will end up with pigment powder everywhere and you will not get it out of anything. Okay? So, and like I said, I'm going to use a variety of them. And once I manage to add my water, it's going to add this really cool, it's all going to mix together all on its own. And these are pigment powders that you can clean up with water. Okay? But it won't come out off of plastic. You can clean it up with water off of plastic. It won't come out of your clothes and things like that. And it'll take a few days to get it off of your hands too. So you want to make sure. So you won't be doing any damage is basically what I'm saying. You won't be doing any damage to your embossing folders or anything like that. You just need to be aware that it will kind of go all over the place if you're not careful. So you're starting to see the coating that I'm starting to put down here. So far I've used, I used a red, well, actually a crimson, Algerian crimson. I've used, I have no idea where the color names are on here, but this is kind of a teal color, a lighter blue, a darker blue. Now I'm going to put on some purples. I'm trying to create this into almost like a night sky-ish. So now you can see where a couple of those darker dots are going on. So this is a very dark purple violet, it says here. I've got an indigo. And I'm thinking that this snowflake swirls or swirling snowflake embossing folder will look pretty darn cool with some of these blues and purples and kind of the tealy colors. This ultramarine blue will be a nice lighter blue. Maybe. It's a pretty deep clunk on there. And let's just do some orchid just for giggles. Okay. So the first thing that I'm going to do now is not to sneeze. You don't want to cough, you don't want to sneeze, because if you cough or sneeze on this, you'll shoot it all over everywhere. And like I said, you'll be cleaning pigment up for a long time. Okay, so I'm going to center my piece of cardstock into my embossing folder. Okay. I'm going to close it. So you can kind of hear it crunching a little bit with all of the pigment that's in there. And I'm going to take it off to my die cut machine, which is just sitting off to the side here. And I'm going to roll it through. And I only need to do it the once. I don't need to do it multiple times. And you're thinking to yourself, but Green, you forgot to emboss, or you forgot to spray it. Yes, I did, but this is why we're going to get 2 out of this, because you don't necessarily see it, but it has now, well, actually, yes, you can. You can see where it has pushed all of that color into my paper. So I'm just going to shift this off to the side here, and I'm going to take my shimmer powder or my shimmer spritz, and we're going to start to highlight that. See? So that's just one spritz, and look at how this paper is now coming alive. And you can see here, I didn't do anything down here, but look at where the purple is going to. Okay, so that's got a little bit of spritz, a little bit of shine to it now. So now I'm just going to add a little bit of water, because I want these colors to mix. Okay, and you can see there I was shooting it, and now it has shot just a little bit off of my surface here. So I'm just going to catch that. And if you were quick and thinking about it, you could actually pick this up and dip. If you had another piece of paper ready to go, you could actually dip it into what you've got here. Actually want a little bit more color off of that. So see, it's still activating. You can see where some of the shine is coming on, but I want these colors to move around just a little bit there. I want a little bit of color here still. Coming down, coming down. Okay. And if I wanted to, I can drag that in, add that color if I feel like it's missing anywhere. Maybe that in there. A little bit of color on this side too. There we go. Now I need to put this to the side for a moment here. So maybe what I'll do is just like put that up there. I'm just gonna let that sit on there for a couple of minutes and just kind of absorb a little bit while I clean that up. And then we're gonna get on to the second part, because like I told you, this is a twofer. So you can see how beautiful those colors are, and they are so deeply saturated. That's the beauty of pigment powders. This is essentially what they add into any one of the inks that you like, your ink pads, markers, all of those kind of things. Is they take these powders, and that's what they make those colors out of. They just add the water or alcohol or whatever to it, and then put it in whatever kind of casing they're going to use it in and things like that, or whatever medium they need it to be into. Okay. So you saw how that got all over everything just from that little bit of spraying that I did. In fact, it's still over here. That's what you have to watch with the pigment powders. Okay. So I did tell you this was a twofer. The reason why it's a twofer is look at how much of that powder is still stuck in my embossing folder. Well, I don't want to just leave that in there. No, no. Okay. So I'm going to give it a bit of a spray. Okay. So that's my shimmer. I also want to do some of the water in there. And I'm going to take my piece, my cardstock here, and I'm going to put it in there like so. Hold it down. And now I'm going to take this whole thing again, and it's going to go to my die cutting machine, and I'm going to roll it through and emboss it again. Okay. Now, what you may find is that you might end up getting some of the water might squish out of your embossing folder. So make sure that you've got paper towel or a cleanup cloth of some sort right next to you, because you don't want to transfer this on another day when you start doing some regular die cutting or something. You know, you're aware of what's happening today, but you might go to die cut something white or something like that, and then you're like, oh, good heavens, and it's all over everything. So such as you can see now, it's on the bottom of that, which means I did manage to get a little bit of it onto my platform here. So I'm just going to wipe that off. Good as new. Clean up a bowl as long as it's still wet. Okay, now up a little bit too. So now I've got all of the depth and dimension and the color. Look at how gorgeous that is. Okay. So I'm just going to put that aside here and kind of give my embossing folder a bit of a wipe here. Spray it down with a little bit of water to activate the rest of this. If you wanted, you could do another one even. Like, look at how much is still. First time I did this, I was a little gentle and not gentle. I was actually, I didn't put enough. Well, I put enough, but I was pretty, I'm going to say I was stingy. I was stingy with my powders on the first time that I did this, because I was trying it out for the first time and things like that. So I didn't get this beautiful, I mean, the colors that I got were gorgeous. I was very happy with them. I was just thinking that I was going to get something that looked more like these two here. That was kind of the intent behind it. So I've still got some color in here, but I'm going to leave that for now because I want to move on to the second part, because I will be using this again. So you don't want to, you don't necessarily need to put your embossing folder away because we're not done with it here. So I'm just going to pull out my, I'm trying not to dip my shirt in this. I'm not so worried about everything else, but I'm trying to dip my shirt into this. It is a grub shirt, but that doesn't mean that I necessarily want to get rid of it, kind of thing. So I'm going to bring this one over, and I'm going to get my heat tool here, and I'm just going to start to dry them here. So in this particular one, I did add a lot of water to. The second one, I didn't add as much because I was able to activate the powders before I sent it through, right? So anytime you're drying something, so you'll notice how it's starting to curl up. That's a good indication that you want to start drying it from the other side now then. See, and it starts, the hot air starts to dry out a little bit and pushes it down. A little bit of the back side here a little bit again. This tool that I'm using is the Heat It tool by Ranger. And it's great. It's good for embossing, but this is actually what they created it for, was for using on mixed media pieces where there's a lot of water, paint, things like that, so that you can dry it. I don't recommend it for alcohol inks because it does get stinking hot. It looks like a hairdryer, but it's not. You'll fry your hair. So I don't recommend it for that, but it is great for drying your projects enough that you can then begin to work on them again without all of the noise of a regular heat tool, which is something that I appreciate, particularly while I'm talking to all of you. Okay, I think this one, yeah, this one is dry enough. Okay. So this one here had a ton of water put on it. This one's quite dry as well too. Just about dry all the way through. This one is dry enough to the touch. I wouldn't be able to emboss on it, like to use embossing powder or something, because it's still wet enough that it would that would definitely stick to it. But what I'm going to do now is now that I've dried it and my powders have been activated, I want to stick it through again because I want to be able to get a little bit of extra texture out of it. So what I'm going to do is find the places now on your embossing folder. You can tend to just kind of slot them back into place. You just have to find the right area. Let's see here. It didn't take me this long the last time. It's because I'm doing it upside down. Yeah, there we go. So what I'm doing is once you start to get it into place, you start to line up so I can see from the back where all of these things are lining up at. So I can see here that this line matches up with right there. And this thin line here and this line here, they match up. So I'm just going to slot them back into place. And you can almost feel it going into, yeah, see, it's almost fits like a puzzle piece. So it's not moving anywhere. It has now gone back into its own grooves there. So I'm going to pinch it together here, and I'm going to re-emboss it just to make sure that now that it's dry, I'm going to push all of that dimension back into it. Now you can see where all of that beautiful dimension is. Okay, I'm going to put that one aside, and I'm going to do the same thing with this guy here. So this one did flatten out a little bit more, but I think it's this way. Yeah, there's the snowflake right there. And I'm going to match up. Okay, there. That snowflake there. Here we go. This one is slightly looser than the last one, because of course it had more water on it. So just a little higher though. Okay, those two match up there. And there you go. Oop, don't move. There we go. Okay. Now, thanks to that, I have also now taken off a little bit more of the embossing powder. Now, what I'm going to do with this is put it in a sink of soapy water, let it soak a little bit, let that color come out, and then I'll be able to wash it. And it'll be perfectly good to use. I'm just going to put that aside for now. And I'm going to do the last step that we're going to do for these, and before we put them on our card fronts and excuse me, and use them. But I'm going to let them dry naturally a little bit before we move on to that, because I'll do the second one so you can see the technique again with some different colors. So now what we're going to be using here is some white pigment ink. White pigment ink is probably one of the most versatile inks that you'll have in your collection, or I highly recommend that you have in your collection. The reason why is because it sits, and you can do so many different techniques with it. Please see a few of my previous videos. And it goes on and it sits on top of your colors. So you're able to do these really cool techniques. So now I've got my little brayer here, and I'm going to load up with my ink. Then you'll notice that I'm going to the end, and I'm lifting, and I'm going, and I'm lifting. Okay, I'm not just going back and forth, because then you just ink up the same positions and everything like that. Now what I want to do is I'm going to very gently take my cardstock, and I'm just going to run pigment ink very gently, because it's going to catch all of those raised, well, maybe not all of them, but again, we use this on a 3D embossing folder, right? So we've got 2D and we've got 3D, and it's going to catch some of those raised areas. That just allows them to highlight a few of those areas and bring that up so that you can see it above your color. Just like that. So now you can see some of the swirls and some of the snowflakes. You can let that dry and do a little bit more if you wanted, or re-ink up. But I'm not looking for it to stand out a ton, because what I really love is I love the colors. I just want it to look like a swirling snowstorm, which is what I'm getting. Yay! Okay. And I'm going to ink up again. Okay. Pigment ink, when it dries, is permanent. Okay, so you'll need to make sure that you are washing off your brayer, things like that. But as long as it's wet, it's usually wipeable. But it is a oil or glycerin based product, so it obviously is going to be permanent. Okay. So now this one, from when I did it, had some white spots already. So I'm going to have to make sure that I'm highlighting the snowflakes and the swirls. That's where I want the majority of this to go, because I need it to look like there was meant to be a pattern in there, not the places where I didn't get my ink enough or something like that. There's always a way to, you know, you never throw away your panel, because you just never know what's going to happen before you're done. So, and it's just enough to start bringing out some of those snowflakes and highlighting some of those swirls. Doesn't have to be all of it, doesn't have to be perfect. But what it does is create and then lift your pattern out of your colors. Get that a little closer so you can see some of the snowflakes. But from here, it looks like a storm tempest or something. It's so cool. So cool. There we go. So I'm going to turn that over. This is the Tim Holtz sprayer, and what makes it so cool is that it's got these little stands, because of course this ink is wet. So if I were to put it down here, I would get ink on this big smooch of ink on my craft surface, which is not always the worst thing. But if it's a super soft brayer, you can actually end up putting a lump in it. Like if you put it down too hard, you can make it concave or something like that. And then when you roll it, you end up getting a line where that hits. So it's kind of nice that it has this little feature to it. So I'm just going to put these two aside to let the pigment ink dry a little bit and allow the panels to continue drying a little bit. I'm going to take my baby wipe here and just kind of give this a bit of a wipe. Get some of that white off. I don't need all of it, because obviously I'm going to do a second one here. But I do want to clean some of it off. And then again, later when I'm rinsing out my embossing folders, I will do the same thing for this. I will rinse it out. And let's put that here to the side with the ink, like so. And I got some ink on here. All right. So if you find that you have any questions during this procedure, by all means, please leave them in the comments below. I would be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. So the last one I did in pinks and blues, or purples and blues kind of thing. This one I want to do in some greens. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to use some of the Ken Oliver color bursts. And I'm also going to use some Lindy's, as well as the Falling Leaves by Nouveau shimmer powder. So this is the Nouveau shimmer powder. And again, I'm putting it on the front of my embossing folder. Okay. Now, what's cool about the Nouveau ones is that they do have shimmer in them, which is why they're called a shimmer powder. So they actually do already have that shimmer in them. So I don't have to use my my shimmer sprays if I don't want to. Now, if you like more shimmer, by all means, use your shimmer. So this is turquoise. Now, looking at it, when I'm putting it down, it doesn't look turquoise. It looks like an olive green. But apparently, according to the container here, that's going to be turquoise. So you just never know what you're going to get. I mean, I've done, did I do swatching in these guys? I don't remember if I did or not. I may have, I may not have. I've done swatching in most of my other inks, but I may not have gotten around to doing my color burst things yet. So. Okay, so this is the Lindy's powder. And this one is Cathedral Pine Green. So I've used Terra Vert. This one's going to be a phthalo green. Okay. This one is a liquid metal, which I'm going to use to finish it off with. And then this one is lime green. So okay. Let's put that like that. And we're going to take our, see, this is what happens when you don't wear gloves. Not nearly as much fun though when you wear gloves. Okay, so I'm going to put that in there. And I'm going to close, whoops. I was going to close it up. Okay, put that in there. Kind of centering it. Close it up. Okay. And you can see that I got it a little crooked, which I'm not super happy about. So I'm actually going to move it a little bit. Yeah, that's better. Okay. Normally I'm not so picky, but this one actually does have quite a straight pattern to it. So I'll have to trim it down a little bit. And I'm going to run her through. It's a little tighter. All right. So I'm going to peel this out, and I'm going to put this carefully aside, because again, it's got a ton of powder in it. And this one, I'm just going to use my Distress Sprayer on. And I'm going to try and block it a little bit. But look at that color. That's just so pretty. This one, I didn't know. I might have to dry it right away. No, I'll see. Oops. Because if you get even one tiny little drop of this powder anywhere, it's going to, you're going to notice it, right? Like it'll be seen, basically. Okay. So I'm just kind of curling this in because I really like this color that it's got on the edge. So I don't necessarily want to lose that, but looks like I'm going to lose a little bit of it. But you can even see here, like even though I used all greens and things like that, it still has things like reds and some dark colors like blacks and purples and things like that in it. I'm just going to put that off to the side here while I clean up my mess, and then we'll create a bit more of a mess. So if you have a microfiber cloth, you don't have to use You don't have to use baby wipes or anything like that on here. I just use baby wipes. That's my preferred item to use. So that's what I use, but you don't have to if you're more eco-conscious. In all honesty, I'm not the most eco-conscious. I work at it, but it is a working. And for this, I like the immediacy of this cleanup. So that's what I tend to use. But I will keep that to use for the second one because we will have cleanup after this. And for this one, I am going to use this sprayer bottle, which does have the perfect pearl color in it. It's got a bit of sheen and shine to it. So I want that water to activate everywhere in there. Apparently I need to refill that a little bit. So let's get to the sides here. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to take my last, well, it's not my last, but my next sheet of cardstock here. Hold that in place like so. And you can see some of the water is already starting to squish out of it. So I'm definitely going to end up having water on my platform and possibly my plate here, which is fine because those are all easy enough to wipe down. So I'm not super concerned about that. Sometimes crafting is messy. Okay, so this one used to wipe up this little bit of overspray. So that. Okay, and then I'm going to wipe down my plate because I did get a little bit of over spillage on that. And I'm going to pull this out because that got it too, and my platform. Gorgeous green though. I'm loving this color. So pretty. Okay. There we go. New one here. I'm going to pull that out. And you can see here that this cardstock is actually quite a bit. I did add more water this time than I did to the last one. So it has thoroughly saturated and the color has actually come straight through the cardstock, which is not a bad thing. That means that we've gotten really good movement of our colors. Okay. Like I said, I'm just going to put that aside because I will be using it again here. And we're going to pull out our dryer. This is the front. No, it's not. Wow, this is so cool. This is the first time I've used this embossing folder, so bear with me as I get a little overexcited. Okay, so it's out here. Start to dry. I think what happened, interestingly enough, on this second one, so a lot of the darker colors must have been on top for this one, because you can see that a lot of the lighter colors have shown up in the second print. So I get the deep, rich colors on this one, and then almost a pastel look on the second one, which is totally different than the first set that we did, right? I got that almost a pastel one on the first one, and then the deeper colors, even with a few mist points on the second one. It's so cool. I love it when nothing turns out the way that you think it's going to turn out. It would be nice if it didn't necessarily happen on a video and I could say, oh yes, for sure, this is going to be your result. Unfortunately, that's not necessarily how it works. Okay, let's move on to this one here now. So we're gonna lift it up a little bit here. And I can see it's starting to curl in on itself here. So now I'm gonna turn it over. And start to work on the back side. And it's curling in. I think this one might almost be dry enough to use. Yeah, that one is. Oh, this one's still a little wet, so we'll just give it a little bit more here. Okay. So 2 pieces. Let's check out the differences because this is fascinating. So I've got some of the deeper color here, but look at the difference in the colors. Like this is deep and intense, and this is so pastel. So cool. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, so I'm going to, apparently what I'm going to do first is clean that up. That was not anticipated. But what I'm going to do here, so as you can see, I've got 2 that I'm keeping here, 2 baby wipes to the side here that I'm keeping because I'm going to use them. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this up again, and I'm going to run it through again because of all of the water, it has, of course, lost a lot of its dimension. You can see the pattern here on the back, but I want it to be more than just that. So I'm going to line up this star here. So this one is a little faded was the word that I was going to use, but it's not. It's a little soft, so it's not going to line up quite perfectly. So I'm just doing my best guesstimate here. Okay, and we're going to run that through. So, and now the cardstock, what's really brilliant about this is that the cardstock, although I've dried it to the touch, it is actually still wet enough that it shouldn't actually be cutting your cardstock. Oh yes, much better. So you can see from the back, I didn't end up cutting my cardstock at all. So everything still looks really good because it is still damp in there for paper, right? It hasn't released all of it. But some of the detail of the embossing folder has now come out. So when we take our white pigment ink and kind of run it across the top of there, the brayer will catch all of those really cool pinpoint details. Okay, and we're going to do this one as well. Now this one, the detail in it has come out a little bit better, which is good. So it held on to the detail a little bit better. So I'm going to try and slot it in so that it jigs into place. Yeah, good. Okay. One just feels a little tight there. Oh, man. Okay, here we go. And number 2. Awesome. Now I didn't get it quite perfect, so I've got just a slight secondary, but it makes them look almost like little flowers there. That's pretty cool. Okay, so now I'm going to pull out my white pigment ink, and I'm going to ink up my brayer, and I'm going to gently run it across the top here. And you can see that the pigment ink is being picked up by all of the high points, not any of the lower points. This is the reason why it's so awesome to do these with 3D folders, 3D embossing folders, instead of 2D embossing folders. Oops. Flip that up so you can see there where it's kind of come through. So our pattern is now showing even more clearly, which is so cool. So cool. All right, we're gonna stick that down. In this one, you might even be able to see it even better. Now, we're not getting a perfect impression, and there are a few places where it's touching bottom, but that's okay. That doesn't bother me because I can put a sentiment there or some highlights or something like that. It's not the end of my world. Or I can even trim it down because it's right at the edges, which I might do. So you can see here it hit a few areas. Now, there might have been something raised there, or I might not have even flattened my cardstock because you can see it is a little warped. Not a ton warped, but a little bit. Look at how it's just brought out that little bit of the pattern. So cool. Okay, so I'm done with my white ink now. So I'm gonna put that away, put that to the side here, and I'm going to wipe off my sprayer. Big spot there. Okay, so it's not perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect because I do intend to wash it as soon as I'm done filming here. But just in the meantime, that does the first coating kind of thing. And now I'll just give my surface here a bit of a wipe and a second wipe. Now I'm not going to put this surface away yet because I have a secondary step that I would like to do to each of my card fronts here that I will need to do before I add them to their card backs and everything. And that is, I want to add a little bit of zhuzh. So I'm going to take a wrong drawer. I'm going to take a stamping block. And let's see, I'm going to do these guys first. Okay. Because they are the driest. So my pigment ink is dry to the touch pretty much, which is good. And I'm going to take, these are liquid metals, and these are by Ken Oliver as well. So I want to be able to add a little bit of spritz or shine or something. So I'm going to add some splatter. And the colors that I'm going to use on this particular one, in order to have it show, I think I'm going to use this iron oxide, which is kind of like a rose coppery color, like a rose gold copper colorish. So I'm just taking just a little bit and I'm adding it to a block, and then I'm going to add some water because these things are reactive in water. So, see here, I'm going to smoosh it together, and then I'm going to take it to the edge of my block and I'm going to start to flick. I'm also going to get a few dribbles, not just flicks. And I like this little bit of reddish sparkle that's being added to these panels. Okay. Do you have to do this step? No, of course not. You could just add some pearls or some other things, or nothing at all. You don't have to do this at all. I just like the extra because, you know, extra is extra, more is more, right? So I'm gonna dot these guys up just a little bit. It almost reminds me of when I'm doing like alcohol inks and I get a pattern and then I put the like the alloys or something like that in there, or when it's still somewhat wet, I take some foil or something like that and add it onto there. I love how that looks and the effect that it gives. So I'm just going to dry those off so that I can move them to the side here without getting coppery gold all over everything. Okay, so that's with the little bit of copper gold. So I'm just going to put those to the side. And then for my green panels, they have this absolutely gorgeous color, Verdigris by Ken Oliver as well. So, and again, it's another liquid metal. So I'm going to take it and I'm going to add some onto my, actually, it's got some mica in it, so I'm going to give it a bit of a shake first. You don't have to, obviously, I didn't use a lot of this. I used one single drop to do for that last, the last two panels. Don't need a lot, so you can see this gorgeous greenish color here. A little bit of water, not a lot, because I don't need a ton of water on this. And then I'm going to take it and I'm going to splatter it over top here. Okay? And you won't be able to see a ton of it, especially on this dark one, but where you'll be able to see it is likely on this lighter one. I'm getting a dribble off the side here. But Yeah. Yeah. I'm actually going to wipe that up because I want to do the same with the copper. But you can see here where the verdigris, it's actually changing a bit of the colors. It's bringing out some gold. So now I want to add a little bit of copper because I think the copper would be really beautiful with this kind of turquoisey green colors that I've got on the go here. So the copper and the iron oxide are quite similar, just the copper is lighter, right? It doesn't quite have as much red tone to it. So I'm getting a very fine spray here. I have to hold it up to the camera for you guys to be able to see it here. Might be able to see it a little bit better on the little one here. But I'm also using a very fine paintbrush, but I didn't want ginormous dollops. Plus what's leaking off of my mat or my stamp block here is providing a big enough dollop whenever it's coming across there. And you can see one right there. Okay, so now I'm just gonna wipe that up. And all that good for my makeshift little splatter. Okay. Brush-ish. All right. Now I'm going to give that a bit of a dry, and then we'll create a card here. Okay. Right. So now you can just see, so you can see the gold sparks here. That's where the verdigris, that green verdigris hit. I don't know if the light is hitting it quite right. And then some of the darker gold or rose gold ones, coppery ones, you can see back there as well. You can see them slightly better on this one, like this dark one here. That's the copper color. And then this gold coming forward here, those gold splatters, that's from the verdigris and how it shifted colors based on the color that I put it on. So cool. So cool. All right, let's clean off my craft mat. If you're wondering what this surface is, it's the Wendy Vecchi Make Art Station. It comes with some magnets. It's handier than I'll get out for using for stencils and things like that because it holds your surface down. It comes with a magnetic ruler as well to keep everything together. I'm going to put this away now. And push this out of the way here a little bit. Well, let's create a card. So I will create a card using one of each of the panels, I think, here, and we will get that on the go here. So so I'm going to start with the green panels, and the one that I want to use, I think I'm going to use this deep intense one because I think those are often the most difficult ones to figure out what am I going to do with this thing. So I'm going to use this deep intense green one, and I'm going to trim it down a little bit because you can see where I got a little bit of the white and things like that. So I'm just going to trim it down by another 1/4 inch. So this one is now going to be 3 3/4 by 5 inches instead. And I'm doing my best to not push down really hard on the panel here because I don't want to take out any of the what do you call it, the embossing. I want to make sure that it stays hopefully as crisp as possible. Okay, Now, oh, I'm actually going to need that. Now I think that I want to mat this on something. So this is going to go on this card, which is a standard A2, so 4¼ by 5½. And you can see here that this actually gives me quite a nice border by taking it down almost a ½ inch all the way around, because my panel is now 3¾ by 5, right? So I quite like that. Now, what could be nice is to mat it onto something like this and put it on there. That would be really quite lovely. Especially brings out the gold flecks and everything that I have in there. Let's see here. See if I have another color that I feel like using even more. No, not that one. The other one, let's try. So this is what you do when you're looking at your cards, is you just try out the different backgrounds. Okay, so then there's that. I kind of like the moodiness of that, I think. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim this piece down now to 4 by 5¼ so that I have it still have the white border. So the first part that I'm going to trim off is going to go here. I'm going to keep that because you just never know what you could use that for. Could use it for a sentiment or something. And then this is already trimmed down to, oh, it's 4½. So we need to go to 4. Got there. Okay, there we go. So I'm still going to be able to keep my nice crisp white border on there. And we're going to take this and get that on there pretty close to straight. Doesn't have to be perfect. I'm not, oh, that's too far over though. Just as I tell you, it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to move it. Okay, there we go. That's better. That's a little closer. It's a little far to the left there, I think. And now, stick this down. And this paper, this background paper came in a pad that a friend of mine, your friend of mine got me. It's a DCWB shimmer matte stock. So it's basically set in sizes that fit pretty nicely for 4¼ by 5½ inch cards. Okay. All right, here we go. So that's our card front. Okay, so we've got this beautiful, colorful background, which is really nice. And what I've decided I want to do is I'm going to take this incredibly huge thank you, and I'm going to pop it up just one level, and I'm going to put that on there, I think. And I don't think I'm going to do anything else. Do I want to have it in the center? I think I want to have it down here, just slightly here. I'll get my fingers out of the way there. So if I put it down here like this, I still get a lot of the colors, right? So see, if I put it in here, I tend to miss some of the splatter and everything because a lot of my splatter went somewhat central. If I put it down here though, because you can see here where I also still got some of that white pigment ink where it kind of touched the background and things like that. Versus if I were to put this here, you don't necessarily notice that I have that oopsie there, right? So, and it shows my splatters and things like that, which is what I like. So I got to add some dimensional adhesive behind this, some dimensional foamies, whatever you've got. In truth, what I recommend the most, and if you saw my last video, what I recommend, this is really thin. Why am I using this stuff? Just a minute. I found the other one. Look, I'm just making more work for myself there by using the thin stuff. What I recommend the most actually is cutting out your sentiment, especially the shadow, a couple of times, and then you have much less, and then matting them under those instead, because then you have 3 levels of it, and it doesn't end up being crushed in the mail, right? Because that happens. Your sentiment, if you don't have anything behind, like I'm not going to have anything behind this part of the Y or here. I'm just going to have my dimensional kind of in this area here. So that will actually end up being, could be crushed in the mail. Maybe not, but in order to have it look really phenomenal when it gets to your recipient, I highly suggest putting dimensional or like putting just actual paper behind it. You'll actually find that that's the most strong. Okay, and I'm using the wrong scissors for this job, but that's okay. They're scissors, they will survive. This here. Just take an alcohol swab to them later and they'll be cleaned off just nicely. Okay, so just because this end of the Y here is kind of sticking out there so far, I'm actually going to put something on there. But you can see there are areas here where my die cut is not covered by, still on a piece there, so I'll just put it here. But even though I've put a piece here, like this could fold in the mail, this part could fold around, this part could fold around. So it's best if you can to cut multiple pieces of your die or your shadow or whatever it is and mat it with that. Like do 2, 3, 4 pieces of this and put it behind it, and then you've got a totally solid backing. It's one of the tricks that takes your cards from, boy, that's really cool and really nice, to, oh my God, you really need to sell these, which is I think what I said in the last video, which is really funny. But it really is the difference if you want to start taking your cards to the next level. And I don't think in the next video I do that, but the video after that, I'll make an effort to show you. I'll show you the difference that it makes when you have just the thickness of your sentiment and how professional and how nice it feels compared to just using dimensionals. There's nothing wrong with dimensionals. There's nothing wrong at all with that. Again, it's just that difference that takes it from one level from here to being like, oh, this is amazing and fantastic, to really outstanding. It's one of those things that just takes it to a different professional level. And I kind of like it coming off of everything there. I don't necessarily need to keep my sentiment centered. That's not really good English, but I'm taking it off of my panel just a little bit so that it still fits within the 4x or the A2 size, but it's not fitting within the colors, which is fine. Okay, so there we go. And now, because we've got so much beautiful shine on there, what is this? Platinum. And go. Oh, listen. Oh, I'm gonna need to get, you know, which one I need. I think I have my gold right here. I do. Yay. Okay, so now I'm gonna add. You could add some gold baubles or some sequins or something like that, or clear iridescent, whichever ones you prefer. I'm actually just going to add a little bit of dimension with some gold Nouveau drops. I love to add Nouveau drops because they're just so simple and easy and just ready to go kind of thing, right? And I'm going to do, so let's say I've got 1, 2, 3, and 2 down here, I think. So 1 right here. Like so. And tempted to do right there. I think so. Yep, I'm going to be right there. Okay, so you can see on my Nouveau drops, I've got a little bit of a tip on it here. Now these are self-leveling items, but you can give them a little bit of a hand by tapping them gently. That will help those little tips start to flatten out and round more naturally. So I'm just going to put that to the side while I grab one of the snowflake ones, the swirling snowflake. So for this one, I'm going to make a top folding, and I have this really cool, seeing as how I put that the copper on there. That's actually not bad behind there. Let's see what else we've got. I think I had a blue one in here too. Blue, silver. Or I have the purple. I kind of like that purple on purple. That's pretty cool. Yep, gonna do that one. All right, so now I got to trim these down. So I'm going to do the same thing because I want to have this one I trimmed down a little bit to have a white border. I don't think I'm actually going to have a white border on this particular card, so I'm just going to trim this down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So it's going to be the full front of my card. Actually, this side because it's where it was torn. So let's go 1 1/4 by let's go 5 1/2 on this side here. Okay, so this should fit, theoretically, should fit if I've done everything right. The whole front of my card front here. Like so, just like that. So I'm actually going to stick that one down first because it's easier to manipulate. Seeing as how I'm not doing a border. I want to be able to measure it and have it go right up against the card front. Like this. There we go. Just like that. Then, now there are several ways that you can do this. So this has got some swirling. You just have to decide which direction do you like it going. I kind of like it that way. And I like that that big splooge is right up there. So I'm going to keep that that way. And I'm going to add some tape. And you can see it is still a little wet. That just picked up a little bit of, I don't know if that was pigment or if that was white, the white pigment ink. Not sure which one that was. And yeah, that looks pretty good. There we go. All right, now I did have, what did I do with it here? I had a sentiment all ready to go. And let me see here. Okay, I've got Season of Wonder. There are a few of them here. Okay. Ooh, I have Season of Wonder in rose gold. I'm kind of thinking that might have to be it, eh? I also have this Warmest Wishes that I did in gold foil. Okay. So I'm kind of liking this Season of Wonder, just off to the left here. I think I like that. And then let me see here. Now I could do Season of Wonder, and then I also have this beautiful little cute little sentiment that I could also do, Sending Snowflake Kisses. But I kind of think I just like the Season of Wonder. I like because the colors back here are just so bright and vivid and vibrant. I think I just want to keep it at that. Now this is a really delicate die, so I'm not gonna pop this one up. This would be again one that I would really recommend just building the dimension of, but unfortunately I left these dies at a friend's, so I don't have them to build up the dimension on. So I'm just going to be sticking this guy down just like this. And so I'm going to need some adhesive. And I'm just going to put it in a few places here. And again, this is the art glitter glue, so it will definitely dry. It'll dry clear, but this background has so much dimension and everything to it already that that's not necessarily gonna, even if some of it did squish out, that would be all right. Now, kind of like, I think I'm gonna cover, yeah, I think I like it down here and to the left, which is different. I don't think I've ever done a sentiment down and to the left. Okay, so I'm just going to hold that there for a minute or two here because it does have, again, a lot of dimension. So I want to make sure that the liquid glue is getting into some of those cracks and crevices enough to make sure that it's going to stay adhered to my card front and to my panel here. Nothing like giving a Christmas card to somebody and then they get it and it goes and their sentiment falls out. And it's like, well, I think somebody was trying to wish me Merry Christmas, but I'm just not sure. Now, I don't seem to have my Nouveau with the rose gold one here, but over here. So just one second. Okay. Just going to warm it up just a little bit. Now, if I really wanted to, I have these really beautiful leaves and things that I've cut as well that could be really nice on there, but I really don't want to take away from the pattern that I've got on the go here. So I think I'm just going to do, I don't always do Nuvo drops, but they sure are handy. Ooh, splidge. So I'm kind of push that back. Fortunately enough, I have a few splidges. Just going to add to that, make this one larger as well. And do one here. I like that on because I got a bit of a splidge there. And looking over here. Yeah. I had that happen once on a card that I was making. I was using my new glow drops, and I ended up getting. I didn't test it out first, which is just basically what I did this because you guys were waiting. But I got this huge splodge, and it was about this big. So I just ended up turning it into like a 3-colored dot for this ginormous high die that I have. So it's got high, and then the tittle on the high is about this big. And so I just made my new glow drops that big. It was really funny, but you can see again, these are self-leveling. So I'm just going to take this, give it a little oomph here. And there we go. So even with my spludge, not too bad. Definitely not worth throwing away. All that beautiful color, dimension. I don't know. I know several people that'll be really happy to receive that card. So definitely worth it. So that's our class for today. Again, using embossing folders and pigment powders. You can find pigment powders in many, many different places. Lots of places online. I'm sure Amazon carries them. Your local craft store. I know Michael's even used to carry Perfect Girls. I'm not sure what else they carry now, but any kind of color explosion powder, anything that is activated by water will work with this technique. Yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Guys, thanks for watching today and for joining me again. It's a little longer of a class this time. A lot of my classes end up being long, but if you have any questions, by all means, please leave them in the comments below. I'd be happy to answer anything. Again, like and subscribe, and hopefully I will see you all soon. Talk to you later.